I want you to walk now, Alex. You can do that.
Seems so real.
Alex, it's very important you understand what is happening. This is real. It's not a dream. It's not drugs or anesthetics.
I know I'm dreaming because I can feel all of this.
Alex, amputees can often feel their missing appendages. It's called phantom limb sensation.
What do you mean,
Dr. Norton did.
amputees? What the hell did you
Alex,
do to me?
You need to relax.
Take this off me now.
You need to relax.
I need to get out of this
Dr.
thing.
Norton
What did you
said
do to me? What have you done to me?
Do you expect me to talk?
Hello and welcome to episode 160 of Do You Expect to Stalk? I don't know why I shouted quite loudly there.
106. Oh, no, that's not quite.
106!
No, that's not quite the. Anyway, yeah.
Hello, yes, I am Becca, and as always, joined by fellow co-hosts Chris and Dave. How are you both?
Good evening, folks.
Good evening. I haven't got a funny comment for this episode, but good evening or good
Oh, well, that's
afternoon.
rubbish.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You know, could be the sign of the view to come that I can't remember that. Well, anyway, no, go on.
Well, I won't buy that for $1 as we review the 2014 remake of RoboCop.
I wonder if Dave will actually forget certain scenes this time round.
It's not as bad as Robocop 3, and I have rewatched it this evening.
Yeah.
So I might be all right. I don't know yet. We'll have to see. I
Of
think
all the dodgy films that we've reviewed, like the worst films of a series, I think that's probably got to be on the bottom or near the bottom, very much like the worst of the worst.
well, it
that we've
wasn't
done
very
so
well
far.
made, but it was spectacularly featureless as well. You know, I didn't have the same fun reviewing it that I might like a Superman 4 or something. The show was all right. I'm not really ashamed of the show we put out, but it was.
It was a funny
Like
show,
I
just the
say-
film was a bit...
As like I say, as any even a remotely professional piece of film reviewing, it was lacking. But like as an entertaining show, it was fine. But like it was quite clear early. We were all a bit embarrassed, and there's quite a bit. There's not a lot cut out of that show, and most of what's cut out of the show is silences, where we're sat there going, "Fuck, this is embarrassing." Isn't it?
Yeah.
Not sure I'm anticipating quite that tonight. Anyway, what are we covering tonight?
Yes, so it's tonight we shall review the 2014 remake of RoboCop. Starring, I'm going to mangle more names here. So
You
have to
never
excuse
mangle
me.
a name. I get this is
Jerry-
becoming quite the tick.
Joey
John
Alderman, Michelle Canyon.
It's maybe the director's surname, but I'll do the best I can. Anyway, yeah, starring Samuel L. Jackson,
Ababy
Gary Oldman.
Connorish.
Anyway,
No.
hush now, Chris. Becca's working.
You can hear the cogs turning. Yes, also starring Marianne Jean-Baptiste, Michael Keaton, Abby Cornish, Jackie O'Haley, Michael Kenneth Williams, Jennifer Ely, with music by Pedro Bonfman. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce his name. Obviously written by Joshua Zetmer, Edward Neumeier, and Michael Miner. Directed by Jose Padilla. That's the best I can do. And released
That's
2014.
correct as well, for fuck's sake.
I'm a
Name the
bit...
leading man.
Joel Kinnaman.
Right.
Joel Kinnaman, obviously. I was getting to him. There's a drum roll.
All right.
No, I was trying to pack everybody in, and I thought,
Poor
that'll do.
blimey.
And obviously forgot the leading man.
Yes.
Yes, but anyway, it doesn't matter. You know, if you're struggling with like, pronunciations, just go to the fast show like Spanish. Chris Waddle.
Waddle.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Sneaky Pinky, Action Pompo.
Escaccio.
That action pumpo thing was quite versatile.
It was, literally. It was really handy. Everything had Action Pompo. Even the baby gizmo, Action Pompo. Oh, so funny.
Yeah, let's just watch the
You
fast
see in
show.
that era.
90s TV.
Yeah, so we've had yet another Becca apologising before perfect pronunciation again. Right.
And another reference to like a 90s TV comedy show. Yeah.
Actually, we have to do you expect to stalk bingo? We need to put out a bingo sheet.
You
So people listening along, they can just tick it off as they go.
If you know what we're doing,
and then they win something at the end.
Bingo sheet, write to us at expectustotalk@gmail.com.
We'll put one together. Or come up with a prize for somebody to win off air, and we'll figure it out.
I've just given an almighty clue to one of them. But yes.
Well, yeah, obviously. Or a pack of bourbon biscuits.
Fuck that, I'm not giving them away.
Gold dust.
Charge $1.99.
Yeah.
I mean, he's only got 10 boxes of them were at home.
And we do get the odd photo from around the world when people find them in their local supermarket.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. And they're always shared with us. Like, people have found a massive stash of cocaine. They're always like, fucking look at this. Like, it's contraband. They're fucking biscuits.
It's like that Indiana Jones just found a discovery. Yeah. Like
they sell them in like multiple, even in the tiny town I'm in, I could buy them in about 5 different places. But you're like, look what I found. Yeah. Although if you are grinding them up and snorting them, obviously we're happy to
keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Inject it to my veins. No.
Yeah, that can't be good for you.
No, don't do that, people. I wouldn't advise. But anyway, yes, what did we think of this remake of RoboCop?
No, you go first, Becca.
Oh dear. I had an interesting time because my Netflix ran out half an hour towards the end, so I had to borrow a copy off my mate and finish watching the rest of it.
Well, that's the authentic cinematic experience.
No, I didn't see this at the cinema.
I bet your mate must thought when you asked him, like, can I just borrow the RoboCop? Oh, what the the remake? Why on earth would you want to borrow that?
Just the one.
It's okay. I only want to watch the last half an hour.
It was a very odd request. He looked at me very strangely. He was like, But yeah, sadly he doesn't listen to our podcast, so. But yeah,
like, I bet you try to explain it. Oh, I've recorded a podcast on it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Well, just the last half hour. Netflix ran out. Well, you're a big fucking film fan, then, aren't you? Really prepared.
Had some problems. There was some unpleasantness. I can never go back.
Well, you can.
No, I just had some problems recently, so I'm kind of waiting on new details. But yeah, no, I missed this one at the cinema. And then all of a sudden, many years passed by. I never got around to it until now. It's okay. It's quite stylish. I like the look of the new RoboCop. Joel Kinnaman is perfectly capable. Really good supporting cast. Obviously, we've got Commissioner Gordon and Batman. Quite interesting. Really good cast, I think. It's quite interesting how his family plays an increased role, which is quite good. I kind of feel that this film's like missing. It's just missing something. I'm not quite sure what. It just feels a little bit like soulless almost. Like there isn't that kind of satirical edge to it, I guess. But no, it's very competently made, very stylish, very slick, really action heavy. 3 out of 5.
That's 3. Do you expect us to talk from Becca?
That's what I have to say. Yeah, I just felt a bit like, but overall it looks very good. I was really impressed by just how very sort of slick everything was. But yeah, I kind of went away thinking it didn't really kind of have a message. I guess maybe I missed something, or I just perhaps didn't see it.
No, I mean, I think what your basic summary there is kind of pretty much dead on. I think it's well made. It's got really good cast. It's actually, I think it's quite well directed. The only problem is that it feels very much like a movie made by committee, which is kind of interesting, seeing as it seems to be trying to criticize that kind of like boardroom kind of like spitballing idea kind of thing. The problem is it has ideas within this that you think, oh, that's interesting, and you're doing something a bit different, but it never really fully comes together. There isn't enough really sort of like huge action scenes to really kind of like to make it stand out even. I mean, you know, even at times where you had the big massive shootout with the gun seller guy. I mean, the fact that I have to call him the gun seller guy just shows you how much of a memorable villain he is.
Yeah.
That's like, yes, they kind of played with that in an interesting way, but in the same way, it's like, well, most of it's shot like as if he's like the Predator, and you think, I kind of want to see what's going on. And that's kind of like the problem. It does take chances, and it does. I'll just drop my notes. It does take chances, and it does, have some its own ideas, but they never really fully come together. There's like ideas about like what it means to be human. Do we really make fully our own decisions and things like that? It does play around with the idea and the concept, but it never really kind of like veers toward one little thing. The stuff with the boardroom is pretty good with Michael Keaton, but when the film, spoiler, when it turns out to be he's the villain, which we kind of all know, but his reasoning for being like the ultimate villain, you just think, well, that's him just being a dick.
Yeah, it's not amazing, is it?
And you feel the film really kind of justify it to wave a gun at his wife and kid. You just think, well, you wouldn't do that, and it just feels very forced, and that's kind of like the problem. Apart from that, I do kind of at least appreciate it trying something new, and it isn't your bog standard remake, but there you are. Dave, what do you think?
I don't think I've seen a film collapse in its third act as hard since like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's the only film I can think of where the third act is just so out of kilter with what comes before. And it is that whole sort of helipad stuff, because suddenly everything that's been set up is shat on. The biggest problem with this film, I'll just take a half step back. Biggest problem with this film is MGM. MGM went kind of bust around the sort of turn of the decade. We didn't get a Bond film for 4 years, which actually doesn't sound too bad now. Yeah, they raced that one out.
Yep.
The biggest thing I remember, I only really remember a couple of points about this whole MGM bankruptcy. Obviously, I remember how it affected Bond, and we will have talked about it during that series, albeit 3 or so years ago. So go back, 3.5 years, and you'll find the films relevant to us talking about that. But there are a couple of things that are worth pointing out are, firstly, when it was sort of on sale, it sort of went into administration as we'd understand it in this country, and it could be bought for $100 million. Now go and look what they paid for Fox, Disney. Look at what they're worth. Look at even what they paid for one property in Star Wars, and yet you could get MGM for $100 million. The main reason that they hit problems, in my understanding, is now I think most studios did this. They kind of over leveraged based on DVD sales. Everything was based on them doing a certain number of sort of DVD sales from their sort of classic back catalogue. MGM had bought into it. I mean, Fox own most of it now. You go and put a Bond film in, and a Fox logo will come up on a Blu-ray. But and of course, the home market collapsed somewhere years ago now. I mean, actually, the peak of DVD sales is over 10 years ago. So MGM had a number of properties sort of ready to go without massive money to do much with them. So this is $100 million film, which is okay. That's not bad. That's healthy. It's certainly not quite B-list, but it's not quite A-list either, sort of budget. But it meant that when they came out of bankruptcy, they were desperately looking for properties they could get some sort of, everyone says, why don't they make, original ideas, missing the fact that they do. It's just the most popular films of a year tend to be sequels. It doesn't mean they're all sequels that are being made, but obviously studios require a predictable revenue stream, that every third year there will be a film of this property and we think it'll do around this, and so on. And it was part of MGM trying to come out of that whole bankruptcy situation to get something predictable running, but they didn't have a lot. I kept reading, they'd optioned some book that they were looking at, Denzel Washington to star in and stuff. The one I'm thinking of never got made, but they've got Bond, but Bond is a sort of co-financing agreement anyway, although they all are now because they're not actually a distributor. A lot of their distribution's done by, all of their distribution's done by other companies, so they do have to share some degree of their profits anyway. But that's, I think, why this film is relatively bland. They were just going for, like, safety first. RoboCop's a name. People might go and see it. Let's not make anything too challenging. Let's make it PG-13 and everything else. For all that, what they've made is very slick. It looks very nice. I still can't make my mind up about the black outfit because I think you're taking a lot of the character out of it, but it does look really nice. It does look kind of shiny and cool, and I quite
style
like
over
it.
substance, really, a little bit.
The
But
film
it does look cool, though.
Yeah, I haven't really ever put it into words before, but Chris is absolutely right about Michael Keaton. I think he's like, he's not a bad guy. He's in Omnicore stroke OCP history, sort of, consistent with what we've seen from this company in previous versions. He's a bit heartless and he's a bit impatient.
Forget, basically.
But he's not waving a gun around at the end. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
So
I mean, even if you had it, portray him at his worst, he's not the sort of guy who would wave a gun around. And
No,
and as when you watch the ending, he's almost doing it to kind of like make a point. And it's just like it's just not.
I don't like the final act of the film,
No.
but we'll come to that as we go through it. And it is like they've overreached themselves. And actually, I'm not going to criticise the film as hard as this is going to imply. But when I think about what I like in the film, it could almost be satisfied by showing me a load of production stills and maybe their audition reels. And that would do me.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? I almost don't need this film in its details. It's quite nice to see the design. It's quite nice to see Detroit look a little bit different than the way it's sort of stylized in the earlier films, largely because they weren't shot in Detroit most of the time. As I say, I sort of half like the outfit, half don't like the outfit. I really like Joe Kinnaman's performance. Again, he's not a Peter Weller, but he's not meant to be. It's meant to be a much softer kind of take on it. I love Gary Oldman in this film. I think he's really good. Samuel L. Jackson as Novak is the one attempt to put some kind of sort of social commentary in the film, and I'm sure we'll talk about that when we go through. Nice to hear RoboCop's score again. You can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to bring back something they can market. But the biggest problem is, the problem I've got with the outfit is probably the problem I've got with the film. I look at it and I go, that's really shiny and it's nice. And at night, the light shining off the sort of the helmet part, it looks really kind of impressive because it's polished to such a high sheen and stuff like that. But it's a quasi superhero without enough defining characteristics to stand out. If it's going to be PG-13 and it's going to be a quasi superhero, well, you're getting towards the end of you're in phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe by this point. You don't need this. So it's RoboCop. It's MGM playing in a market that they're wildly outgunned in. And they've thrown some names at it. It's a pretty good cast. I think there are compromises all over it. Even Abby Cornish having such a big role in the film is kind of a sop for trying to make parts of this film hard-hitting. It's almost to reassure the audience that he can have some kind of normal life. So it's a film that pulls its punches left and right. And I think I'll just leave it there because we'll talk about it in the details, I think, as we go. I didn't have a bad time with it. I think it's the second best RoboCop film we've had so far. It's not quite as ambitious as RoboCop 2. I think RoboCop 2 is a more difficult and challenging film, but it's a film they fluffed. RoboCop 3 is terrible, and based on what they were trying to do, this is actually like perfectly competent. Perfectly competent, based on a property that started with an absolute stone cold classic, and I think we've been saying for a couple of weeks now, without ever having thought this or discussed it before we got into it on the show, it's a series that didn't lend itself to sequels, and I think this actually, so far, is just continuing to prove that point.
Yeah, it's kind of like flawed as a concept, but had some ideas though, isn't it? It's one of those things. It didn't really fully had a strong idea to go with.
RoboCop's a great film, but it's the RoboCop isn't a great IP. Not in a. If you're going to sequelize and go mass market, PG-13 and everything else, what you've got is a quasi superhero film, and there are enough real superhero films out there that this is just going to be wildly outgunned by all of that.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. That's why. So then you're thinking, well, what does work with RoboCop? And it's all the satire, social commentary, and ultra-violence of the first film. And you can't go and do that 5 or 6 times. Not really. Now, whether you can do that sort of reboot qual thing.
Yeah, but you can't. You do need. It'd be very difficult if they did, because obviously you do need that kind of like 12A PG-13 certificate in order to get more bums on seats.
Fund it for. Depends how much you fund it for.
But I think if they did like the ultraviolet, slapped it with an 18 certificate, I think they would struggle, or at least it would get more on home release for sure.
Logan was R-rated.
Yeah, that's that kind of gained more. I say you gained more traction on the home release, which which is no bad thing, definitely.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I mean, when everyone goes, well, Deadpool made this much and Logan made that much, and you go, well, yeah, but you still sacrifice some audience.
You're going to lose either way, aren't you? I think.
But what I'm saying is, 35 years on, let's say, by the time it comes out, as a curiosity, if you make a sequel to the original RoboCop as though it was 1990 or something, then that might have enough curiosity factor and enough tooling the satirical message to a different world, i.e. it's still 2029, but the subtext of everything you're saying is based on modern America, not 1987 America, then that might have some traction. But what I can't see that you can do with RoboCop, the original series we got, is do a film every 3 years or so. That is in the vein of the first film. It's not set up for sequels. The only way you're going to set up for sequels is something like this. And like I say, Iron Man 3 came out 3 months before. It's like, well, you can go and watch a proper superhero film if you wanted.
It is kind of a bit half-baked, but still, as you say, perfectly competent, no worries. I'm hunting for some fun facts that don't involve people who are dead or dying. I came across this review from The Guardian, unfortunately, good old Greenyard review. Where is it? Let's have a look. Wanted for serious crimes against cinema. The remake, like 2012's Total Recall and the planned Starship Troopers reboot, don't just miss the point of Paul Verhoeven's films. They embody the very things he satirised.
Don't 100% agree with that.
No, I think that's been.
There's an attempt at commentary in this film. It's watered down, but then it's bound to be when you're trying to reboot a studio.
This is it.
And it's not a crime against cinema, and I think it's actually.
No, I think it's a bit.
It's insulting to reference the Total Recall remake. The Total Recall remake was absolutely nowhere near as good as this. The Total Recall remake was absolutely an embarrassment. Well, it was Len Wiseman all over. I mean, they went through the core of the planet to live one side of the world and work the other, and it was based on a Philip K. Dick work, obviously.
Yeah.
And one side of the planet looked like Minority Report, and the other side of the planet looked like Blade Runner. And it's like, that's Len Wiseman. That's as much vision as he's got. He's just copied 2 other Philip K. Dick films.
Yeah.
It's just like the guy has no vision. He can make something that looks all right, but it will look like other people's work, but not even influenced by, literally like. This is just no.
And look at him now. His wife's left him for Jack Whitehall. There you are.
No.
Jack Whitehall.
I don't know, but I think she's like she
has left him.
Yeah, she's gone with. She was seeing Jack Whitehall at some point. I'm not sure she still is, but that's not that. Anyway, that's Chris's tabloid corner.
Yeah,
that's Chris's that's Chris's tabloid corner. Done, dusted.
Tabloid corner. No fruity corner this week, but tabloid corner.
Yeah.
We're all over it.
We like going to corners.
Especially when Chris is around. Like,
Yeah. I also love the fact that I'm there where they're like going, huh, his wife left him, and I'm sat here at my age alone. You know, it's like every woman I've had in my life has left me at some point, so I can't really throw stones.
well, at least you're not Len Wiseman. That's what I'm saying.
But I'm not Len Wiseman. I have far.
Yeah, I think you're so lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. Len Wiseman is fairly competent as a filmmaker. I genuinely believe he's barely competent. He's like Paul W.S. Anderson standard. But this Jose Padilla, I'm looking at his filmography and I've not seen any of it. I've seen a little bit of Narcos. I haven't seen any of those films. I don't know if you've seen any of them.
I saw his new one.
Tebe.
Yeah, the one with that hijack.
Right.
Is it? Let's have a look. Yeah, because he got this from
Rosamund Pike, who seems to have a better film a week coming out this
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, she gets better and better.
Yeah, Esame, is it called? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I won't argue the pronunciation because I'm not sure what it
Or
is.
yeah, or 7 days in
something
Esame.
like that.
But yeah, that was okay. It was quite good though. It had some sort of weird kind of sort of dramatic sort of cutscene in between like the tension of the drama. So, but yeah, that was like that was done quite well. Everything else I've not seen, but I quite want to see Elite Squad because that was where he got this gig from. They've been, I've heard, kind of that they're quite good sort of action type sort of thrillers. So,
Okay.
but I haven't seen them, so I can't.
I mean, in terms of the action in this film, it's just serviceable. It's
Yeah.
fine. He moves quite well, but then, you know, his outfit is designed slicker. I've got various problems with things, but they'll arise as we go through them. I'll just go, well, why did they do that? And why did they do that bit? I'm not sure about that bit. It all looks very nice, though, and it does feel like how you might update RoboCop.
Yeah.
And I know people are nostalgic for the original outfit and all the rest of it, but I don't know if you were producing a brand new series in 2014, it wouldn't have looked like that Peter Weller film.
No, he wouldn't be as chunky as he was because
No, it wouldn't. You know, because it isn't. It doesn't work with action and things like that. Even though I've got a lot of fondness for the original, obviously we chose the series largely based on the fact RoboCop's a great film. We didn't choose it because we were desperate to do RoboCop 3.
No.
Well, you think of something like Superman, and you go,
I'm dying to do Quest for Peace. Like,
well, yeah, but there's part of that. You go, well, you do a great film, and then you do like that.
yeah.
But RoboCop 3, as became clear, doesn't stand out enough. So there's nothing in any of these sequels that drove us to do that film. It is purely that 1987 film that drove us to do the series. So, I mean, we're clearly very fond of it, but nostalgia can be a dangerous thing. I mean, and if that sort of what was going to be a Neil Blomkamp project happens, and we get the quasi late 80s RoboCop sequel, a lot of what will make that work, as I say, will be if they manage to update the satire to talking about a different era, but also nostalgia for that film. You go, wow, it looks like it was made then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In and of itself, if you were to divorce it from the original, that sort of thing's not going to fly today. It's just not. You could tell Peter Weller could hardly move in the fucking thing. Whereas the outfit they put him in here is actually really sleek. You can see he didn't have any great problems moving at all.
No, it looks quite normal, and he seems to move quite easily.
Yeah. So, you know, full sort of power to them for the designs. And 100 million isn't a massive budget. Not for these days. So, but yeah, I think a lot of what we've got is based on who was making it, when they were making it. This came out. What am I looking at? About 15 months after Skyfall. Bear in mind, a lot of Skyfall development was going on behind the scenes during the bankruptcy because Sam Mendes continued to work for the studio as a quote-unquote a consultant. He carried on like basically working for Eon for a small retainer. And they'd done about a year's work before it all happened anyway. So this coming out 15 months later actually suggests RoboCop was a really high priority to them. And I don't know what, just before we go into the film, I don't know what properties do MGM have now other than Bond? Can we think of any?
That's a good question.
I mean, don't worry if you can't, because I can't.
I'm sure they do, but yeah, it just doesn't spring to mind.
I'm gonna make so Golden Mayer Pictures. Let's have a look.
I think the answer might be they haven't got anything that really sticks out. They might have something in a genre I'm into, like horror or something, but...
Well, they're much more of a classic, aren't they? A classic era now.
Yeah, well, I mean, MGM were song and dance movies.
Yeah, that was it pretty much, didn't they? So
Yeah, whereas you had Universal
Mad
Monsters.
Max, but I don't know if they still have them anymore.
Yeah, I guess they might have. So I don't. I mean, I guess we could look up Fury Road and just see who released that. Fury Road was. They're not even one of the production companies. The lead one on that was Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
So yeah, they don't even have Mad Max anymore. Shame, because they were coming out at prolific speed as well. All right. Okay, shall we discuss this film sequentially, folks?
Yeah. And that'll explain Poltergeist and Red Dawn remakes as well. Yeah. But yes, shall we talk about this film sequentially?
Yes. The Novak element. Now, when anyone says this film doesn't even understand what worked about the first film, you point them straight to this and go, yeah, they know exactly what worked about the original films. You know, it was you know, a certain sort of polemic view of the world sort of starting it off, and this is in line with the sort of commentaries we have out there now. So yeah, Samuel L. Jackson as Pat Novak.
Yeah, like an opinion news, like I should say, I'll use in quotation marks, journalist. Literally heavily biased, but you know that's
It's not a million miles away, and I'm not really making a particular point. I will name the station I'm going to name, but it's 15 years from now, 10 years from now, it's the sort of thing that might be on a Fox or something like that.
Yeah.
I can see one flaw in that argument, but I won't voice it. Yeah, so this is about basically a robophobia.
Yeah, again using buzzwords as well.
yeah, it's all very much.
Yeah, they're in. He's got a camera crew in Tehran with like a blonde female, which is another thing that makes me think of Fox. And
it's a bit like that.
She's being watched by Maddox, which is Jackie L. Haley's character, and they're basically clearing a street, aren't they? With Ed 209 droids updated, sleeker, basically than the original ones.
So
and a load of like robots, basically. Bipedal robots, humanoid shape.
Yes. So it basically the CEO of Raymond Sellers. What's the name of the organization? Is it?
It's Omnicore this
Omnicore.
time rather than OCP.
Yeah.
It was Omni Consumer Products in the original film.
And they're kind of owned by OCP.
Yeah. So
well, Omnicore almost sounds like a holding company over the top of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's the same basic principle.
Yeah, it's the other way around.
Tweak of name.
And they're basically making military droids, and they've struck a deal with the US military to launch these things and to help clear troubled sites in the Middle East. We see a bit of that in action.
You see the ED 09s or different, new updated models.
Yeah. Now this is the commentary here is based on. Well, first off, what do we learn? The commentary here is about the Dreyfus Act. We'll see Dreyfus in a bit. Hubert Dreyfus, a senator, played by who played Dreyfus. I know the actor. Let me look for him. Zach Grenier. What do I know him from though? He's really well known.
He's the boss of Fight Club.
There you go. The answer is everything.
Yeah,
he's been in everything. He was in.
Yeah, he's done quite a
lot. J. Edgar, I think I might have seen and saw him in. Yeah, Fight Club. He was in the 2000 version of Shaft. Donnie Brasco.
Oh.
And on TV, fucking everything. Seriously.
Yeah,
The
he's
remake of Shaft was quite good. I remember that being quite a good film.
What not the version that came out this year, the version that came out in 2000, but also
Yeah, the
Samuel
old
L. Jackson. not the original Richard Roundtree one either.
I haven't seen that one, but I hear it's amazing.
What, the Richard
No,
Roundtree
the one with Jeffrey Wright in it.
Right, yeah, the one Christian Bale's got a big role in it as
yeah.
well. I think the 70s one is massively of its time, and some of those I love and watch with a charm, like blaxploitation films and stuff. Like I can't remember which one I like, Foxy Brown or Coffee. I think I liked Coffee and didn't like Foxy Brown. It may have been that way around, but like some of them are really good. Shaft I found quite a difficult watch. I just was like I was a bit bored by it, to be honest. The Samuel L. Jackson remake from 2000 I didn't like very much. The one from this year, it's limited, but I enjoyed it. I didn't mind the one that's just dropped on Netflix.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a comedy, that one. They play it more comedic.
It's a lot more knockabout, and they play up the sex appeal again, which they seem to play down in the 2000 version a bit.
Yeah.
So he's much more like his father's son, if you like. It's all right. It is like I mean, the plot's fucking really by numbers, but it's actually kind of funny. But yeah, the Dreyfus Act appears to be about robotic organisms on United States land, basically, isn't it? That you can't deploy them in military or law enforcement. You can't use these drones, basically.
Which is like, you can kind of just see the conflicts of opinion and like obviously this is something that's passed in over foreign sea, but you kind of left with like, well, if it's okay to use them on foreign land, then why is it not okay to use it over here? And then there is the argument that maybe we shouldn't be using them because they are essentially droids, and there's a danger in that. So there's danger in like. It's like the Bond argument, isn't it? That that Skyfall made. It's like where's Bond's place in the world? Well, you need someone to pull the trigger.
London, 50 fucking 5-year-old car.
Yeah, you need someone to like not pull the trigger as well. That kind of thing. It's it's as we get into it, there's talk about we have compassion and biases, and we make on call decisions.
We do see Sellers in front of like a committee that's headed by Dreyfus, and he's asked, and we'll cover it now, I don't know exactly where it falls in the plot, but he says, what do these droids feel? And he's told he's evading the question. He sort of is, but he's sort of answering it as well, in that he's saying, well, they don't feel prejudice, they don't feel this, they don't feel that. And he said, yeah, but it shoots a child, what does it feel? And he's like, nothing. And that's why 72% of Americans won't wear this. So as the film starts, 3/4 of public opinion's against this anyway. And of course, the whole Novak Element show, I think, is meant to sort of be promoting it. It's meant to be helping the case to show a very clean and clinical taking down of a very dangerous street. And we do see the perspective of the droids when they're scanning people and finding no threat. And for sort of 3/4 of the time, it all looks very straightforward. But then, of course, there's some suicide bombers arrive, and it goes to shit. And then they cut the feed anyway, because this is a Pentagon-approved feed. But we've been introduced to the major plot point here of this Dreyfus Act and what it's going to lead on to. That's going to be a continuing point through the film, and we've been introduced to Jackie Haley's character, who works for Omnicorps, sort of mastering all these droids and deploying them, and he's going to have a major role playing Jackie L. Haley, basically. That's not an insult, but if you think of generic Jackie L. Haley character, this is kind of it.
And not Freddy Krueger.
Oh yeah, not Freddy.
Yeah, and he's not playing Freddy Krueger or another character who has to wear a mask. Another kind of villainous character who wears a mask.
A film that's a single one-shot montage of jump scares. That film, fucking rubbish. The Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
Oh.
And it was back in that era around the time of the Halloween remake, where it was like, let's show the backstory. So we had to see him get burned.
Oh, that was just so ridiculous.
For fuck's sake.
The annoying thing is, though, that it almost went into, that's a different direction, where it kind of had Freddy Krueger as innocent, and so he's kind of this fact that his death has actually causes him to come back and get revenge. But then he kind of, oh no, he actually is. It actually added like a sense of, oh, maybe that's a bit different. That's a bit of a hard.
Yeah, and you've got the kids finding, with repressed memories and all that. It had some good ideas in it, but he played it very internal, whereas obviously Robert Englund played it very, very showy. And with that character, the Englund end of the spectrum works better. But where do we go from that then? So we've been introduced to the Novak element. We've been introduced to the whole issue around this.
Yeah.
Do we go straight to the conversation with? No. Where do we go from there?
I think we get into basically we have to all set up, as you say, with with Novak and Sellers and their basically what's going on. And then we go straight. Then we get title, and then we go straight to
title with the Bolidera theme as well. Yeah.
I think it's nice that we hear the theme for a little bit, so and only for like a few.
I do remember hearing.
Updating of the only thing I will say is it's only the slightest updating of the sort of font and shape of the RoboCop logo as well, so it feels like a gentle update.
Yeah, definitely, and we see it quite late as well. Like, as a good chunk of the film goes by.
Yeah.
Before we see the title.
I kept sort of feeling I kept hearing little sort of sound designs and little sort of music cues that kind of like conveyed the original score as well. So it kind of made me kind of feel like it's still
RoboCop.
There's
three little phrases here and there, aren't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite erratic on music in terms of how well I notice or don't notice. And of course, you can't miss the theme, but then the score didn't stand out to me at all after that. I don't think I've got any comments to make on the music. Getting stoned ain't gonna help, Becca.
Oh.
Charlie will be with us soon, but not tonight. So yeah, we cut to the we've mentioned the Dreyfus stuff, so I guess we meet Alex Murphy properly now, don't we?
Yes, we. So this is it does this kind of weird thing. I did wonder about the scene because we introduced him and he's walking into the police office. And we introduced to two other cops are sitting there, and they established that he doesn't trust them. He thinks he already says as much that I think they're dirty.
Yeah, you've been investigating for this number of years, so you're either crap or dirty, basically.
And then he proceeds to tell what something that's just happened because he said, there's people in the morgue and Lewis is injured. What's happened, and he proceeds to tell it. Then we start to see it, and I was thinking, is there a reason why we're kind of like seeing it through, or could we just not have seen it for ourselves? Do you know what I mean? We kind of like it's kind of broken up with him telling what's happened, and I wonder from a storytelling perspective, is that the wisest thing to have done? We kind of have this kind of a scene where Murphy's working like undercover. And trying to sort of nail this this arms dealer, and I just think would we have had cut straight to that and have like a bit of a badass scene with Murphy and then him kind of like a shorter scene, shall we say, in the office
to show his moral courage.
Yeah, accusing the other guys of reason why I did this because you guys came up with jack shit. I think this kind of thing. Yeah, that's the only thing that was going through my mind. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. To be honest.
Yeah, it was just not.
Yeah, you could put a spot on there. I think.
I haven't really got much to add to this, to be honest with you. I
think we're going to be a bit like this all the way through.
It does remind me.
No.
If you're going to compare to Peter Weller, he doesn't stand out in the same way. But I quite like Joel Kinnaman. He's another one that I just think. I often talk about it with Ryan Reynolds, Jay Courtney, and a couple of others where their career doesn't reflect the fact that they're actually pretty decent in everything they ever do.
It's all really good actors, but at the same time, it's just kind of the same sort of. I will say, I mean, he's definitely got the look you kind of need, that kind of square-jawed hero for sure. Somebody who's going to be definitive underneath the armor, similar to Batman, I guess. Kind of, obviously you've got, the iconic silhouette, but he's kind of got that right square-jawed hero, so he's got the right look to him, and he's got the right physicality to him for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him play sleazy. He doesn't play sleazy, but I've seen him play hard-nosed politician, and actually not necessarily that moral. But there's a gentleness to him in this as well. So I think he's quite a nice choice. He's actually not a problem at all. So yeah, we've got. I think we go. We see this flashback. Yeah, basically they. What they find is they're undercover trying to buy weapons that shouldn't be on the street, so illegal weapons, and it turns out from serial numbers the weapons come straight from like the police's kind of evidence cache. Effectively, cops are like on the sly selling these weapons back out there. So that's what that is. There's somebody inside the police department getting that stuff out there. And they reveal that they work for this guy called Antoine Vallon, who doesn't continue to be that big a deal once after the first act is done, which was a surprise. He's not this film's Clarence Bodiger, is he?
No.
Not quite, no.
And this film needed a Clarence Bodiger. It really did.
I just realised
It really does, yeah, it really
What
does.
was my problem? Well, it's because it was
Missing
all
Clarence
about
Bodiger.
Murphy and his family. After this, we had no big bad really. We had Keaton suddenly turn big bad at the end, when before that he was just a bit of a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gone from kind of a bit of a dick to old man. Well, I guess, I mean, I don't know. You can kind of argue that, like, the original film, you kind of do have these, you know, kind of strong, clearly defined hero-villain roles. But obviously, whereas, like, today, it's a bit more kind of grey. There are, you know, if you go down that well-trodden route, there are no heroes and villains. It's all very grey area. But it's not enough, really.
No, I guess it's not. But I mean, the whole point here is they've worked out they're cops, and basically they're in a restaurant and suddenly they're attacked. And by they, we mean Murphy and his partner, who's Lewis again, but it's a man. It's Michael K. Williams this time. And Michael K. Williams, Lewis, I can't remember. What's the first name?
Jack, I
Can't
think.
Yeah, it's Jack,
It is
isn't
Jack. It is Jack. And he gets
Not Anne.
shot. Yeah, he gets shot. And that's it. But they get away, basically.
Again,
but-
I still kind of get the impression that I think just the character of Lewis in general needs to be much better served. I kind of feel like in the first films, a lot of her, I'm sure this didn't happen, but like a lot of her scenes ended up on the cutting room floor. That's just my impression. And here, I kind of feel like he's very underserved here. I mean, he's a fantastic actor. You just don't see enough of him.
Well,
Very underwritten.
In the original film, you put them in that, at the time, futuristic sedan car. And you could put Lewis in the car with him. But the iconography of this film seems to be taken straight from fucking 80s TV show Street Hawk.
Street Hawk.
Well, Street Hawk, for those who don't, I think it only ran for like 13 episodes. I'm just looking it up now. Basically, it was a pale rip-off of Knight Rider. So Knight Rider was really popular with, you know, the intelligent car and all the rest of it. So a year later or so, they put like a bike version on screen, Street Hawk. So, you know, this fucking magically tricked out bike, and it didn't run for that long.
You also had Airwolf, was basically the same thing.
Airwolf is the same thing. I would
guy
say
with a
Good
great
Comfort, but I'm not
helicopter.
100% sure. Yeah. It's kind of the same thing, and it is like when people say now, why don't they do anything original? And you go, well, they never fucking did. If something was popular, they'd butcher it and do, you know, rehashed, warmed over versions. That's just what happens. But yes, Street Hawk is so. Of course, they stick him on the bike, which iconically you can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to establish this strong sort of visual style for the new RoboCop. Yeah, if they're going to have a series going forward. And of course, it gives him a good, decent agency going around, like investigating his own death by himself and things like that. But it doesn't suit the partner. You know, I always remember when I watched the original RoboCop the first time, there was something a bit anticlimactic the first time he drove out in that car. You know, you've put a load of like money and tech into this guy, and then he's just driving around like a regular cop. Obviously, there's more to him than that. but I just remember visually thinking that's a letdown. So I can see why they've given him the special tricked out bike and everything else. I get that. But of course, it absolutely pisses on the point of the Lewis character going forward, because he only bumps into him at like briefings and things like that.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's more just like homage. I think because the Lewis character is always, I mean, yes, it's she's always been underserved, but at the end of the day, it is RoboCop, and
Yeah.
I mean, she's more underserved in the sequels because that's like where you could have really had her in those films more, but
I just kind of feel like, what's the point,
yeah.
I do as well. I do as well. But I guess I don't know.
It's like token female character.
It could have been. He could have gone in with a uniformed cop. He could have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It almost-
That's just my feeling anyway. They're kind of still following that same kind of.
It's not really a problem, but because there's no ongoing big bad after what happened. So yes, he does try and solve it all, but it's even the whole what happened to Lewis bit. He's back at work, seemingly unaffected. There's no arm in a sling or
No, he's superhuman.
Well, I mean, they've had the time it's taken to build RoboCop as well, so he has recovered. But of course, this is purely an Act 1 problem for Lewis, and so we don't need him after this.
Yeah.
But obviously, they've advertised themselves now that there are cops showing an interest in this Valon character, and the chief, because that's a flashback, the chief is saying to Murphy that was an unauthorized mission, you shouldn't have gone and done that. And we do get conversations about we get conversations later where we hear Valon talking about, it's a cop, what can we do, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Looking at I do have a synopsis in front of me. It's now we go to the subcommittee hearing, but we've talked about that. Dreyfus is basically saying, what does it feel? Nothing. 72% Americans don't want robots on the street for that reason.
And it's with that where he kind of like, well, they can't trust a machine, so we need to put a man in the machine.
They need someone they can root for.
Yeah.
Every man.
A man, yeah.
So then you go see Gary Oldman, Dr. Norton.
Yeah.
It could have been Ed Norton playing Dr. Norton, don't you know?
Could have been Edward Snowden.
It could have been Edward Snowden. Could have been Edward von Glockenspiel.
I quite like this. I'm presuming this is CG. I guess it could be something else, but it's CG. But he's basically, again, blurring the line between sort of engineer and doctor, because there's a guy there who's obviously had his hands removed for whatever reason, illness or bomb or injury or military or whatever, and he's I'm presuming a concert sort of flamenco guitarist. And he's
sort of like Spanish guitar, isn't it?
He's just working with this guy to play guitar for the first time with his new robotic hands, and he's saying,
amazing, isn't it?
I've never played with these, and it was like, well, you don't play from your hands, you play from your brain. So and what we find out is the more emotional, and this does have a payoff later, the more as he starts getting emotional, it starts going wrong. You've got to keep a very level mental state, because you basically, your brain chemistry changes the moment you get emotional. That's the way it's explained to us. And while he's talking, we've had this conversation about we need to put a man in the machine, which is a conversation he had with Jay Baruchel, who's later going to present options to him. And Jennifer Ely's in this in a bit of a thankless role as like a bit of she's like the cold
cameo role from Jennifer Ely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like, well, it's a big company. We need a steely businesswoman type. Let's get
Fast, yeah.
She was there beside him at the Senate hearing and all the rest of it, subcommittee hearing. But yeah, he goes to see Dennett Norton at this rehab center just to sort of. Well, I don't know. I don't actually remember. I was so taken by the guitarist, I don't even really remember what he says to him.
Well, he just basically sort of like asked him to kind of like do some work. Really, it's not really like
there's no description here.
Yeah, but he just kind of comes. He's sort of like I've got an idea. Can you work with me? Then we get straight to the The
dirty cops.
um.
Don't we go to?
No, they could have could go there straight to like them off with the options. I've got a police officer here who's like,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
yeah. And
Oh, we go straight to the options on who they can put in the suit. You mean?
yes, and they establish their favourite, but then he says
That's
yes.
right. There's different amputees, and they've either completely let themselves go, which means their mental states are questionable, or they were really full on super aggressive soldiers. And it's like, no, that's not what we want. We need a very building on the scene we've just had.
Yeah.
Norton is saying, well, that's not the candidate you want. This is a scientific piece of work.
Yeah,
Then we go to the two officers that Murphy had a bit of a crack at, and they meet Valon to basically say Murphy's going to the hospital to visit Lewis, and that's where they put a bomb under his car.
and then we have the scene with the family, which is just standard sort of oh hey wife and child,
Yeah,
let me put you to bed and whatever. Oh, what's that?
yeah. The kids are only ever out of bed for about 3 minutes after father gets home.
Yeah,
They never get any time, do they?
No.
It's a ridiculous cliche, but
it always seems to be just after dinner.
yeah.
Yeah, the wife's just doing the washing up. Yeah,
And the kid has always got something they're desperate to show dad, who
yeah,
shows interest and says, but bed.
yeah.
But it's actually all right because it's got a nice warm colour palette. That is a house you'd want to live in. Lovely warm colour palette. Abbey Cornish is lovely anyway. So he's got a nice family and they've all got a nice bit of chemistry. So as a little sort of scene, it's all right. Thankfully, it's fairly quick.
Yes, because the car alarm goes off. So
When he goes to bed and they start making love. And then, because that happens as well, they all have sex every night in these films. You don't get fuck off. I've had a hell of a day.
Yeah, you never get the wife sort of like, oh, how about tonight we?
Not tonight, love.
It's been a long day, love.
I wish you'd mentioned that before I drank half a bottle of fucking whiskey. Right? Yeah. Anyway, the car alarm goes off and he goes out to switch this off. This is a much more palatable for a mass audience way to kill Alex Murphy,
Yeah.
quote unquote, because he doesn't actually die here at all. He goes out. The car door opens just as he gets there, and he's just blown back across his driveway.
And
Side, and he's there on basically burning.
and then we got straight to like the
discussion with Clara and
yeah.
Omnicore and Norton. This is the one thing I did think when we went straight there, because I thought we might get a few scenes of his life's in the balance and all that shit. Actually, the storytelling's kind of fairly tight.
It is at the moment. It
is now, yeah.
The
setup's all pretty tight.
Yeah, So she's instantly there, sort of, and the wife's a little as conflicted because she's like, "Well, what does this mean?" So we get to go through like sort of the options and basically sort of what's working, what's not working.
He would survive, but he would have his legs are gone, one arm's gone, he's blind in one eye, and we see a shot of that eye that it's PG-13, but it doesn't look pleasant.
Yeah.
No, it's still quite,
he'll
I
be deaf.
winced. I was like, ooh.
Yeah. So basically, they promise like a life post this, essentially.
Yeah. And then we're straight to 3 months later, so we don't get loads of like Miguel Ferrer going, they're gonna fucking love you. None of that shit.
Yeah.
No.
We don't get.
3 months later, he's dancing with his wife to Frank Sinatra.
Yeah,
what on earth is this?
He's made to a full recovery, by Jove.
Yeah, he's magically.
His arms grown back.
His arms grown back. My miracle of.
He's only got one arm.
Oh, I'll have to watch that soon.
Fly Me to the Moon, they're dancing to on Sinatra song.
Yes.
And it turns out it's a garden party at his home. They're in the back garden dancing, and like Lewis, a fully recovered Lewis, is there, and assorted extras. He's dreaming. It's a dream.
Yeah. And then he finally wakes up and finds out
He
that
was like,
he's...
waking me up now. It's just about to shag her.
What, in front of everyone at the party?
I was just doing my moves. I was about to tell everyone to piss off. And then we were going to go upstairs and make love. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was that point we are going to find out that the Murphy household are exhibitionists. They just...
Shag it.
Right, everyone. Watch this. Norton wakes him up and has that first conversation of basically where he is, and he's in China.
Yeah, well, we don't know that immediately.
No.
He's, he has
No, I thought that was a bit. I don't. It sounds like I have a massive problem, but I don't. I was kind of like, shoehorn, gotta shoehorn it in.
Why?
And it's just like, oh,
Why China? Particularly as the only hint we're in China is a fucking paddy field.
yeah, it's a bit.
I
It's a shorthand.
I imagine.
I thought Chris must be thinking.
It is a little bit like that. We've gone literally from from those sort of scenes where you have musical motifs, and now it's just kind of literally shorthand, like, oh, we're in China, oh, there must be a paddy field, so that means we're in Asia. It's just like, there are other ways to do this, more intelligent, more culturally sensitive ways to do this.
It's actually a slow reveal, because the first part is they have to activate his limbs and his spine and his ability to feel, because when he wakes up, he can't feel anything outside of his head.
No. It's really like his head and his lungs, pretty much, isn't it? It's just like,
And it's Dennett going, okay, right. These aren't the
Activate
words
this,
he
activate
says,
that.
but it is activate the spine and so on.
I imagine it's probably in China because of probably legislative reasons. Probably wouldn't be allowed to do this. Play back in, or
Of
back
course,
in more.
all of their robotic research is being done outside of the country. Yeah.
So it's probably in the middle of fucking nowhere as well. So,
It's not a problem. It's
Yeah.
just when it's suddenly he runs into a paddy field and you're like, that's a bit lazy, isn't it? We're in China, all right then.
yeah.
runs into a busy Oriental market.
Yeah, that's the other thing you normally get, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like we're in the Netherlands. He would have run straight out into a field of windmills and fucking poppies or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take a shortcut through the clog factory. He's quite
The tulip fields or something like
quite
that.
distressed by this. Do they?
Wakes up in France. He sort of runs onto the Paris streets where there's people riding bicycles with baguettes. And
Yeah. As he runs out into the field, we see him jump over a wall, and we see what he sees from his eye display, which is a lot of working out angles and who people are, that sort of thing. There's an Ed 209 unit that doesn't engage him because he's an OCP or Omnicorp property. Jumps the wall, and then it just says remotely from the lab. He said, "Okay, switch him off."
Yeah.
And so he's basically down powered, and then back in the lab, he starts having a conversation with Norton. And says, "Show me," and so he's disassembled till we see what's left of him. I guess the only bit I don't understand is the hand. Just the hand. It's like
you know what? I guess psychologically, because he's already lost the other hand. I think psychologically it gives him the element of touch to a degree. At least he can touch something. And I think that there's probably an argument that no, we need to at least give him that.
Okay. It's odd because when they disassemble him, it's on the end of a fucking metal pole, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's basically got most of his brain, although you can see it's augmented with little bits of tech. He's got his heart and lungs, and that hand. That's it.
Ooh. I wonder if it was a reference because of obviously, I think in the original he was going to have his arm, but obviously he loses the arm anyway. So
yeah,
I
kept waiting. I kept waiting for the line "lose the hand," and then
Yeah.
I was thinking of "lose the arm" for the first one.
Maybe it was a reference to that, perhaps.
Could have been.
There are little dots, to the little dots, little crumbs and pointing back to the original here and there. Some twists on it, things flipped on their head.
He
Maybe
asks
that was it.
to die. He's told Clara signed the forms, and he's kind of Norton's just trying to talk him round. It's like, this will have been for nothing, all the effort, we made and all the rest of it. And he agrees to talk to her over sort of Skype effectively, but he wants just a close up on just his face, and he isn't ready to talk to his son. Yeah. And that's it. I guess that's it for that bit. So again, it's quite clear at this point Abby Cornish is going to be staying in the film. She's actually got a name
at this
I
point,
forget what her name is.
He doesn't
Clara.
it doesn't get talked about, but he's at this point in time he's fully conscious. He knows exactly who he is, but he's still in the suit.
This is we haven't mentioned that, and you're absolutely right. In the first one, he comes round and he's this new being, RoboCop. No idea of anything else. He has to learn he's Murphy. This film, he's Alex Murphy. He comes around from an accident, and it's like, what's this suit? Well, it's actually you, Alex.
Yeah. Which is the idea with it. They're like sort of take it off me, take it off. It's like, no, but you can't.
You can't. It is you.
And you think, you do get a sense of like just the horror of being trapped and like, what is this?
Yeah.
So we go that from straight to the simulation tests from the get go. Was it Maddox, the Jackie Earl Haley? Yeah.
Yeah, really crammed in the line about buying that for $1 in this. But anyway, he
goes, I won't buy that for $1.
He is put up against, in a virtual scenario, up against an ordinary sort of, like, what would we call them? It's just a robot, basically, isn't it? He's put up against a robot at the moments where he sort of backs against a wall. He's going around to sort of rescue hostages and kill bad guys, and it's all like through corridors and round angles and through doorways and that sort of thing. And of course, human beings lean back against the door and take a moment to look round the corner and things like that, and the robot doesn't have to. So by the end of it, he's like 5.6 seconds behind, and that's only in about 30 seconds to a minute. So he's lost a load of time because he's thinking, and he's showing fear and apprehension and caution and things like that, and the robot doesn't need to do that. There's no time lag between what do I do and doing it. So they have a couple of goes at this, but basically what when they show this to Raymond Sellers is, that's not what we want, and it's like, but there's a man in there, and it's like, make him like that, pointing at the robot.
And while Norton is trying to basically explain that sort of, look, you can't have it both ways. Like, this is, a machine can do this.
If you put a man in there, the man will always be in there.
Yeah. It'll always be conflict with like the orders. Do you know what I mean? Which you think about, it's kind of daft because he's still performing better than average than most cops. Do you know what I mean? Like more than anyone could probably do. But he's like, no, it's got to work as good as the machines. So he's like, sort of, just basic orders like, I don't care how you do it, just do it.
Yeah.
So they basically sort of rework on his brain, don't they? The doctor kind of does some sort of fiddling.
Brain surgery.
Yeah.
And it's also good natured because he's saying to him, I've got to put you to sleep now, Alex. And Alex is like, okay. And they speak really gently.
Yeah.
So
it's not often enough that Gary Oldman does, but when he does like sort of these gentle, nice characters, he does it really well.
Oh, I think he's great in this.
Yeah, he's really good. I'd say if anybody stands out, it's Gary Oldman for sure.
Yeah.
He's fantastic, even with the accent.
Now, this is something they don't reverse till he reverses it later, and I'll have a problem when we get to this scene, when he reverses it later. But what they've done now is basically, he tells him to make him more tactical. What we haven't mentioned is he's in a slight update of the 1987 suit. It looks somehow cheaper. I don't like the original suit they put him in this. It's meant to be a slightly sleeker version, but it actually somehow looks even more cheap and plasticky. And then he says, make it more tactical, Sellers says. People don't know what they want until... Because they show this version where when the helmet goes up, a load of lights flash and all that sort of thing. And he says, what's that? He said, the public don't know what they want till we show it. Make it more tactical. Put him in black. And when we cut to the training, he's in the Robocop suit that we're going to see him in for the rest of this film. But the surgery has basically made it so that whenever the helmet comes down, a load of information is sent to his brain to make him feel like he's making the decisions, but he's not. He's basically a robot as soon as the helmet comes down, isn't he?
Yeah.
When the helmet goes up, he's Alex Murphy, no problem. And he doesn't know the difference. He's aware of going around shooting, but he's not aware.
No, computers
that
doing the
it's
work.
Not him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we've got this training sequence and it's explained during that sequence where he has to take out a load of drones and Maddox. Not kill them, it's like tasers and all that sort of thing. But he's got to basically take out, I think it's something like 58 of them when it's all counted in this kind of warehouse. They just use warehouses in
It's
the
quite a high
Robocop
body count.
franchise. Yeah, but they're all robots. But yeah, he basically goes around. It's not a bad little sequence. I quite like the way this Robocop.
No, it's quite good. It's a bit video game-ish, I must say. But yeah, it's shot really well. It's quite effective.
Now, this might be a nitpick here, but it's just in the little ways that you know, that Murphy or Robocop actually moves. And I say like, oh, he's meant to be under illusion. It's basically the computer doing all the work. But yet he still kind of has a little bit of a swagger, like sort of how he chooses to rip off a helmet of one of the robots and throw it at Maddox and things like that. You know, you just think, no, that's definitely Murphy.
Yeah, you can still that's still very much him.
Do you know what I mean?
Making
So
a stylistic choice.
Yeah,
His tactical choices are being made for him, but his personality is still aware, so maybe he can do bits and pieces. You're right, though. It's not quite consistent.
but yeah, I mean, they do have that conversation. Is this ethical? Is this legal? Like, you know, and Sellers makes the point. No, actually, you just reverse it. It is a machine that thinks it's Murphy. You know, and that's the kind of like selling Murphy out really. So yeah, we have that. They go straight to put him on the street, don't we? Or am I missing?
He goes to see his wife and child.
Yes, and of course because he's
there 5 minutes.
Yeah, because he's been tacked with, he's kind of a bit motionless.
No, he's all right at this point. It's what happens next that knocks all the emotion out of him.
Yeah.
With the helmet up, he's Alex Murphy. He's fine. He's quite emotional when he sees his son. Actually, he's got some his eyes have certainly moistened a bit. And his son has kept all these, I don't know, ball games or whatever recorded so they can watch them together and all that. And he said, not tonight though. They've got to work on the suit. And he goes back to Omnicorp, bumps into Lewis. Lewis says, asks him about it, and he says, it's not home yet. My home's over there for now. And that's the sort of scenes we're getting from Lewis for the rest of the film. They bump into each other in corridors or at police briefings and things like that, and have a couple of words while they walk and talk. Where they then got a press conference to present RoboCop for the first time. It's being presented for the Novak element, I think, by the same woman who was in Trouble in Tehran. And they're sort of getting Murphy ready, and they go to link him to the police database, and it's everything. And of course, I forgot it's set in the future because I thought that's 3 years worth. No, it's not. It's more like 17 years worth.
Yeah, it's like
2011. Everything from 2011 on.
I mean, even from like, I think, this is kind of like futuristic stuff, but you think, fucking, how can like a brain can take all that shit?
Well,
That's
almost
crazy.
instantly as well. So he's processing this massive amount of information, and he starts remembering what happened to him, and he starts. It plays a bit like a panic attack, actually. And there's panic because he's got to be. He's got to be presented like any minute. So I think they're dropping serotonin levels.
Oh yeah, I kind of felt a little bit like, they kind of dialed him back to like 5%, 10%, something like that, and I was like,
until he's almost not there.
Yeah, he's like, I don't flatten him out too much.
Which is almost kind of like probably like what the the film was trying to do, is trying to think, oh well, we'll do this. It's like, oh no, we'll just knock it back and back till eventually it is just a robot.
Yeah, he'll be more machine than man.
Yeah.
But you've got the appearance of a man there,
Yeah.
and the rest of it. But of course, he can't interact with crowds properly and all the rest of it without the man element. So again, the film has some ideas about about man and machine and how far do you dial him back and still keep the man there and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
He goes out to meet the crowd, ignores his wife and kid completely, just scanning them as no threat. Sellers tries to shake hands with him, and again he just scans him, no threat. And then he sees like a rapist and murderer in the crowd.
Yeah, and then instantly arrests him.
Yeah, and that's it. And of course, it leads to a load of editorializing from the Novak element of saying, "Well, there were two cops stood right there." He doesn't at any point blame them. He doesn't say, "Well, he was just like they didn't know." But
Yeah, he was there. He was proving the point about how RoboCop works. Though, it's kind of annoying thing. It's probably the only thing about media. I was thinking, do you really have to kind of like? I mean, and it doesn't name them, but we kind of
you
just
have
showed
literally
them.
highlighted them. Yeah,
Yeah.
Those two cops were stood feet away. Yeah,
It's almost like, is that kind of a bit mean? I mean, really? I mean, you could have just said it rather than shown it. Do you know what I mean? But anyway.
you could have silhouetted them. You could have even gone, look at the distance. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. So now you've basically got a more of a debate. The debate is now going in the direction of getting rid of the Dreyfus Act because we can see that's immediately worked. And also, Sellers tells Norton to keep Murphy away from his family for now. And of course, they're a little bit traumatized because he just hasn't spoken to them. I think we then go to a briefing where he basically says, "I've got 13 targets today. See you later."
Basically.
Done this job. Goodbye.
Yeah, there's no personality in there at all now.
And we kind of see like how he would basically work. Like he sort of just rides around on his bike, kind of knows exactly where they are, arrests them, tases them.
Because he can link into CCTV. So we will pull up a file going, right, that's the person I want.
Well,
link to the CCTV around the city. Right, they've just been spotted there. Off I go.
Yeah. And then just like sort of tases them, and then like sort of and just leaves them for the cops to pick them up.
This is the part of the film that matches where RoboCop shoots the wannabe rapists in the dick in the first one. It's that bit first night on duty. That's what it is. This is Superman's first flight. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's just going around, and you kind of look at it and you think like, that it has some ideas of how technology probably would work in this context. Just that quick using CCTV.
There was no popularized internet in the first one.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of networking, plugging into things and stuff like that is much more mature by this point. The visuals are nice. Like I say, if you compare it to the whole marketplace, you go, well, I'm not sure how distinctive this RoboCop is and that sort of thing, and I don't know if there's a market for this. Just taken on its own merits of just the film, you think, this looks really nice. He looks pretty good, and it all moves very nicely, and the visuals of what he's seeing has come a long way from like the T-800 and stuff like that. It looks pretty good. So I was quite happy at this point, particularly as it's all about to go south in terms of the way he follows what he's supposed to be doing and so on.
Yeah, 'cause it's up until his wife kind of has to kind of confront him. We get the thing where she comes out and blocks his path, and she kind of sort of does the Alex, it's me. Do you not remember it? And it kind of like triggers like
he's scanning her again and just getting emotional states, because it's been established he does a recreation in a little while of his murder scene, and he can not only scan and sort of recreate the scene in his software, but he can also sort of judge people's emotional states by looking at them, heart rate, that sort of thing. In scanning them and skin temperature and all that sort of thing, he can work out when somebody's distressed, agitated, about to be violent, all of that sort of thing.
Almost like when they're telling the truth as well, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yes. But again, it's a TV series, not a film series.
Yeah.
That is, you can imagine him going around in like an hour show trying to sort out something. But
yeah, like Law and Order, but with RoboCop.
Yeah. Absolutely. The same at the same time. So we've got. Where do we go from there?
Yeah, then that's where you go straight to him.
The crime scene.
Yeah, investigating his murder, and he kind of goes to his old home or his current. I
Yeah.
don't know. And obviously the CCTV there is amazing because it's got. I mean, I don't know where the cameras are, but we actually see like shot of where he was killed, and he kind of like picks up the evidence.
Yeah.
And just goes straight to the guy who Murphy talked to first time round.
Yeah. Exactly that.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
he sort of tells them where it is, and just goes straight to the bad guy, so to speak. Yeah, and we just basically get like a gunshot. But the problem is, I kind of think it's we don't have that many action set pieces in this film.
Not
really.
at all. And I'm wondering if that is a budget. By the time you build a suit and pay all these salaries for pretty decent actors, it has to be said.
Possibly.
Yeah, you can see that all the money has gone on obviously the effects and cast.
Yeah, but I always thought like that. For this film, kind of was a bit low in the action stakes as well. But again, I think that's largely down to there's no real solid villain here. I think a solid villain does.
Yeah, he's not going up against anything. They've sort of, it's when you think about Batman, and there's a lot of talk of like the 2021 Batman film, the Matt Reeves one, that it's going to be much more Batman in detective mode and stuff like that. And that's what Murphy's doing here, which is it has got its own interests, but I think that's much more known to be part of the Batman character, and we've had different iterations of Batman, and you think it's actually time to see something like that.
Yeah.
With RoboCop, I'm not so sure. I think we needed a bit more action.
Yeah, definitely. I think we just need a strong antagonist to kind of like go against.
And
really.
again, you've stuck him on this bike, A, for the vision, and B, for the sort of solo working and being able to get around the city responsively, because he'll see something on a CCTV camera and he can duck in and out of traffic. But all of these choices have got consequences. So the choice here, he becomes a detective, you lose the action. The other consequence is you ruin Michael K. Williams' character, because then he's not working with anyone. He's working by himself. And in fact, you've dialed him down to the point now that he couldn't interact with anyone anyway. So it's not great. He does go, but he's investigated the scene, got fingerprints and all the rest of it, and he's linked those two cops, hasn't he?
Yeah. So he goes and basically sort of gets everyone in the entire warehouse, and then he goes scans the room, picks up the fingerprints, and goes, right, okay, clear evidence. Goes into arrest the two cops, and then actually sort of manages to figure out that the police,
The chief.
the chief was involved as well.
Yeah, because he can scan phone records.
Yeah.
He knows when outgoing calls have gone out and stuff. And of course, it's all remote because we live in a world now where you can dramatize Wi-Fi. Whereas obviously back in Peter Weller's time, he had to physically punch a spike into something to actually download something. There was no concept of you could walk past something and be connected to it. So it's just a sign of the times, really. Then what?
He shuts down because he has to be shut down by remote by Maddox because he's just about to shoot police chief.
All right.
So so they kind of they decide to Omnicorp, is it? Omnicorp decide to use it as publicity to kind of say, something's happened. He's kind of in. They kind of keep it quiet while they figure out what to do. Say, Murphy got injured in the line of duty, but he exposed a bunch of cops.
They use him as a hero to justify the whole Novak element thing again. Of if we had pure robots, you wouldn't have people like Murphy having to put their life on the line again and again and again. And then we see the public are sort of closer together now. It's like 50-50 on this Dreyfus Act, and they do issue saying he's in critical condition, and again Sellers is like, well,
make a martyr.
Yeah, exactly. And they're also basically trying to buy senators at the same time anyway. So again, he's suddenly starting to become darker as a that he's starting to position
Yeah.
as the villain, the Sellers character. What then?
Well, we have like the Senate hearing, and they sort of decide to this kind of like happening at the same time. So they and they managed to get the bill
Repealed.
repealed.
Yeah.
And they're about to sort of Sellers is about to basically sort of tell his wife that that he couldn't that he's died just while it's going on. But meanwhile, Norton kind of tries
Norton
to save
gets
him.
him out quite bravely, in that
Yeah.
I honestly thought Norton was going to die here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
In most films, and in most films, Norton would die here. It just seems the obvious sacrifice. I'm quite pleased they sort of didn't, because it is obvious. And so Murphy goes out, and it's at night as well. So again, you got all the lights sort of bouncing off this bike and him. It's quite a pretty film. It lacks a certain distinctiveness, but it's kind of pretty. And it's just him basically heading back to Omnicorps headquarters now, isn't it?
yeah, because they've released the fact that he's died, so everything's riding on everything's riding on the fact that Murphy actually needs to die.
Yeah.
Because it's like that'll just expose everything.
Again, you got the issue of consent as well, haven't you? That's I kind of thought.
Yes.
That's the sort of main problem I had with the first, not problem I guess, but with the first film, for example, is because he's dead. And they don't seem to kind of approach his wife or anything like that. But yeah, no, I think that's kind of they treat that issue a bit more sensitively in the remake than they do in the first film, which I think is interesting.
They
I
tried
think
to
you
sell.
have to do it in this, today's day and age.
Well, in the remake, they tried to sell it as like your husband can have a life. In the original,
Yeah.
they go, "Fuck it, he signed a release."
Screw it, he's dead. Do what we want.
Yeah. Although he did die in the first one,
Yeah.
whereas he didn't actually die here. So
No, he's still kind of.
it's all a little bit softer here, though, isn't
Yeah,
it?
there's just a little bit. Anyway, sorry to hijack.
No, Jackie, you're the host.
Can you guys stream?
So basically we just have like another big shootout with a load of robot. Murphy
I
gets
fucking hate it. From here on, I just don't care. And all the stuff on the sort of helipad, I don't care.
yeah.
So
I mean
it's
you know-
whatever you guys really. I mean, I'll comment obviously, but it's whatever you guys really want to say about any of this.
Well, it's not much. I mean, Lewis gets involved in the action.
Finally, they give him
Yeah.
At
something.
long last, jeez.
I mean, he does save his net from the 209 that doesn't shoot him because he's not armed, and then he managed to save Murphy because Maddox and all that are wearing these kind of like wristbands that sort of make them like unable to be killed, which is established at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
So he's like obviously they're about to kill Murphy defenselessly, and is shot by Lewis, and then Lewis, and then Murphy goes on the helipad, and then sort of while using all his free will, managed to shoot Sellers while waving a gun around for reasons I don't know, but there we are, and that's pretty much it. I mean, we kind of. It kind of ends there. We kind of sort of get like we cut back to like Novak, and he's pretty pissed off because we see Norton sort of give testimony of basically saying what we did was wrong. We see Murphy back on the beat, and that's it. We get Samuel Jackson drop his F-bomb.
Yeah, it's like, right, we're going to give you one F-bomb in this film.
Well, they beep it out, but it's
He got to say it on set, bless him.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then we end with the clashes. I fought the law, but the wrong one. So there we are.
Was the suit he fitted? Was the repaired suit at the end the same suit? I can't remember now.
I think it was probably the same one.
Yeah, he's still in the black. All right.
I imagine.
Yeah. So the president has basically repealed what the Senate did, which is perfectly real world. That happens. The president has the right of veto. And obviously, unless you get like effectively a super majority after that, which is obviously a wider margin than they squeaked it through with, that's the end of it. Yeah, stop whining and get with the program. Yeah.
Get with the
Okay.
program.
So yeah, I'll just go first on final thoughts because I kind of went last at the start. I really don't have a lot to say. I just think we're finishing with a whimper, but we're finishing with like a very professional whimper. You know,
It's not Robocop 3. Let's put it like that.
No, there's nothing really wrong with it. It doesn't notably look cheap, although you can see bits where you go, right, well, they might have put a bit more action in if they'd had a bigger budget and things like that. There's always more you can do. But, you know, I reviewed one of I think it was Angel Has Fallen fairly recently. And it's the best of the three of those films, I think. But there were bits in it where I could see the budget's not the biggest, is it? This is B stream, you know? And I don't feel that here. I mean, all right, it doesn't look like it doesn't look like Avengers Endgame or something, but I can't see any major deficiencies where you go, that effect doesn't work, that doesn't look right. It all looks very professional. I like Joel Kinnaman. He's a very different, smaller take on Alex Murphy than sort of Peter Weller. Not as distinctive a voice in that, but that's not what they're going for. They're going for a much softer presence anyway, and a family man. The original Murphy was a family man, obviously, because he had memories awakening of his wife and child, but, you know, and he learnt a gun trick just for his child. So, but we actually see Alex, you know, continuing on with his family, and had there been sequels, they'd have been in it, and they, you know, how big a role, we don't know. This is, though, you know, they've tried to update the suit. I'm kind of pleased. I know people love that original suit, but if you literally had the same suit, it didn't work. It wouldn't work now, I don't think, unless you were deliberately making an homage to the original. And when they tried to update it as the Mark 1 suit in this, it actually looked kind of a bit cheap and nasty. So I like the look, I like the bike and all the rest of it, but that's in isolation to this film. Put this up against characters with some similarities, so the detective element, you know, and just effectively a man, albeit an augmented one in this case. There's elements of Batman here. He's operating a bit at night and things like that. You know, with the sort of robotic elements, there's a little bit of Iron Man in it and all the rest of it. And when you look at other superheroes around that are sort of crossing some of the territory they're covering here, this just looks like a glorified futuristic cop film. It doesn't have anything that you'd want. So you lean back and go, well, what does it have that the original offered in terms of like satire and the state of the world? Well, it does talk about the degree, the balance between man and machine a little bit. It throws in that Novak element thing to try and have some sort of commentary on the world. And there is a little bit of echoes in sort of the polemicists we see on news channels now and talk shows. But it's all a bit watered down. But again, I refer you to what I said at the start of the show. This is a studio that had just been sold for 100 million, which is like giving it away. That's changed down the back of your sofa in terms of film studios. And they needed something, and they needed something that they thought would be bankable. Now, we haven't seen any sequels, but it was kind of bankable in that they made it for 100 million. It did close to 250 million, or 2.5 times its budget. Not bad at all. You know, with home market and all the rest of it, this film probably just about turned a profit.
It was okay. It propped up.
But obviously, what do? You know, this is almost like a big budget TV pilot. Not in tone, it feels like a film. But I can picture Alex Murphy going around on that bike and dealing with different crimes and getting around the city and having to talk to different people and having to put scares on other people and glitches getting in the way and them having to sort it at, you know, head office and all the rest of it. It feels like this is actually quite suited to spinning off into like procedurals. But yeah, there's not enough about this that stands out that it was ever going to be more than one film, but it's actually perfectly serviceable if watered down.
Yeah, it's almost like a shame because it is trying something, and it isn't just like a lazy generic remake. You know, it has some elements of ideas, but they just don't fully come together. And as you say, the last act just kind of doesn't really hang because it spent like the entire like 90 minutes trying to figure out what its villain is, and what it's left with is kind of like a very sort of almost like a passive Michael Keaton, which he's good in it for what the role is, but when he gets to maniacal villain waving a gun around, it's just like, well, no, that's not that character. So it doesn't work. You need someone like Clarence Boddicker, as you say, who really is sort of to drive the movie forward.
Yeah. In line with this film, you'd probably have to water it down a touch.
Yeah, and when I say that, I don't mean like someone that ghastly and violent, but you need someone
that someone with that purpose and scale of role.
Yeah, someone memorable, even if you're just hamming it up a little bit, just someone villainous, outright villainous. So you know he's the bad guy. He's up to something good. Yes, he could be with someone who we don't know. I mean, you could easily just had the cops and do something with them. But they're just kind of like side characters that we kind of forget about for about an hour of the running time. So yeah, it's almost like a shame. But then again, it at least I as Dave has said a few times is at least you tried something new. So you didn't just sort of rehash old shit. You had idea, and you
didn't make literally the same film with new visuals.
Yes, or visuals from other films.
But you made more or less the same film in that, like, it's still all the same beats, but they were never going to go ultra violent, for example. So his hand isn't like blown off. He's killed in a car bomb.
Yeah,
which is fine.
Yeah, it's fine. You don't. I think you'd have to sort of say leave the ultra violence to the first film and just do something new this time around. But I've said kind of what I want to say. Really, I'll just be repeating myself. Becca.
Yeah, same really. It's kind of just it's as if they almost thought, okay, we'll take this classic movie, this really sort of satirical film, and just do like a watered down version. But no, I always kind of struggle with this end bit because I try not to repeat myself as to what I said at the top of the show. So yeah, as you say, Dave, perfectly serviceable. Definitely, I enjoyed it. As obviously some parts I liked, some parts I didn't like. Yeah, thanks for reminding me that Gary Oldman does shine in this film for sure. On the whole, the cast is fantastic. It's a really well put together cast. Also, often playing roles that you wouldn't expect them to play. Yeah, perfect adequate. But it's just a shame that I wanted something, because the first one is such a classic. It's kind of known for its satire and its ultra violence, as it were. I'm just really disappointed. I kind of came away feeling very disappointed by it, just a bit deflated. It was like a little bit let down that it didn't really have the bite of the first film. I thought, well, now obviously with social media, obviously 24-hour news channels. As you mentioned at the top of the show, like opinion news as well, especially from a channel that is kind of, it's Fox a bit and everything but name. Not to get too political here. It is a really sort of comment on that, and also you've got issues like sort of AI and especially drones as well is a really big issue at the moment. As when and where they should be used, and medical and also military implications and applications of tech as well. Not really much of a commentary on well, not as much as I would like, for example. I'm just kind of nitpicking now. But for an original film that was kind of quite clever, and the sequel's oddly prescient in a way, oddly kind of like future facing. This one doesn't quite achieve as much, which is a bit disappointing. But other than that, really enjoyed it. I'm glad I've seen it now. I sadly missed it at the cinema, but I'm glad I could take that one off my list.
I think I took a lot of time to talk about what happened to MGM, and it was absolutely vital I did, because
it's really important.
Because otherwise you'd go, where are their fucking balls? Do you know what
it's one of those kind of films where like what happened off screen is more interesting than what happens on screen.
Really, this is your remake of RoboCop, but when you understand how in the shit they were,
Yeah.
you go,
It's like
yeah,
with
of
Quantum of
course
Solace,
it's-
for example.
of
You know,
course
the
it's
reason why
not.
you understand why it's so short and that it kind of is not as good, for example, is because you know you have to kind of look what was going on off screen, what was going on behind the scenes, what was going on with the studio. It's a much more interesting story. But as you say, when you delve into it, when you kind of really kind of learn more about it and dig deeper into it, you can understand why this is the product that we were left with, which is a shame. They could have done so much more with it. But I think, yeah, for a first time Hollywood debut from the director, you know, well done.
Oh, it's
Did the-
very,
did the
it,
best
looks,
he could.
it looks very professional.
And he did the best he could with the tools that he had at hand. So, yeah.
But Chris, how well informed do you genuinely feel?
Well, I've watched the movie twice, and yeah, I don't feel that well informed. I'm struggling here. I'm struggling to sort of think of any sort of information I can actually say.
My worry is this film isn't set till 2028, so it's going to be 9 years before we can learn anything, surely.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm surprised we managed to like watch it and review it, seeing it's not been made yet.
Yeah. Actually, to be honest, we really ought to look into that, because that's kind of a bit unsettling, to be honest.
Yeah, we may have just invented time travel, but yes, we've.
Well, we watched Back to the Future. It gives you the general idea.
Yeah, I guess. I guess.
Drive fast at some shit, plutonium. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Steal some nuclear.
Some plutonium and drive fast. Rebecca, what can you teach us?
Not a lot. I really struggled.
No, that's right. The film's quite, as I say, we've been kind to it, but it is kind of a bit bland, so don't
Not
worry.
even IMDb.com could save me.
Yeah, you asked IMDb and they went, there was another Robocop movie?
They went, nope, sorry. Jog on, please. Yeah, so yeah, fun fact number one, as I said, this is obviously the first Hollywood movie from Brazilian director. Fun fact number two, obviously the two main characters could have been potentially named after philosophers, varying views on AI and their applications. Obviously, Hubert Dreyfus argues generally kind of against AI research, and that computers can't achieve human thought. And Dennett Norton being named after Daniel Dennett, he argues that AI may kind of, I don't know, quite necessary, but it is quite dangerous. This is the only Robocop movie to be released in IMAX. And then the last two facts, I kind of had to plumb the depths of my knowledge about sci-fi. Obviously, AI is a recurring theme within sci-fi, very popular, both utopian and dystopian sci-fi. Has its roots back to Simon Butler's Zero One, obviously, for 1872, and also his 1863 article on Darwin Among the Machines basically kind of raises the issues of machines taking over men and becoming, self-replicating, basically. So I just mean mankind, human beings, not men specifically. And fun fact number 5, robot comes from the Czech. Robot typically is in sci-fi, it's applied to obviously mobile kind of machines in human form, literally just kind of performing the same job over and over and over. It's kind of used in terms of mechanized labor. You can have allegories of slavery as well.
Yeah, they made that joke in The World's End, don't they? Sort of like, oh no, robot means slave.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of like a very crude. It just kind of means sort of like labor, for example. So yeah, it's kind of like a crude translation with the kind of Russian and Czech roots there for sure. I think you get that in some really early. I can't remember the name of the director, but like really 1930s, late 30s, early 40s film. One of the kind of expressionist school. And yeah, that kind of filters through. But the kind of first time that we see machines mimicking human form would probably date back to the 18th century. It's sort of like clockwork puppets and dolls, for example. And then it kind of feeds into the rest of the literature of the time. So that's two rather fun facts-ish about robots, I guess, in AI. I really struggled here, unfortunately.
I was, yeah.
If you've got any fun facts, listeners, let us know.
Sorry, go on, Chris.
I was going to say Dave's favourite director, Aaron Aronofsky, nearly directed this film, or
Oh god, that would have been
version,
amazing.
a version of this film. He was
So much better.
he was in talk to direct. Not if you ask Dave.
I don't know. Give him a mainstream property, maybe. Although I did read his sort of treatment for what he would have done with Batman, and that sounded fucking horrific. But no. I mean, Aronofsky is not worthless. Not everything he's ever done is worthless. And you give him something mainstream like RoboCop, particularly with a recovering studio sort of resting, on his back. Maybe he would have given us something a little bit less pretentious. He's certainly a decent shot maker and things like that. So maybe I mean, I think the problem I had with the second half of this series, only been 4 films, is I stuck sort of RoboCop 3 on, and I remembered this film a little bit better, the remake, than RoboCop 3 anyway.
Yes, there was no chase scene in a comedy car. So
there is that. But at no point did I instantly forget the film this week. But as I started watching RoboCop 3, and it was clearly as bad as its reputation, and I was about to say as bad as I remembered. I didn't really remember not that well. And I was thinking, we got a problem now because we got 2 weeks of shows that I don't know we're going to have very much to say about. So, all joking aside, I think I'm just pleased we've got like 2 half-decent shows out of this, because the biggest problem with this film is it's serviceable, and serviceable tends to be incompatible with like strong opinion, and a lack of strong opinion means you don't have an awful lot to say. This film is actually all right. I just think in the marketplace it was a part of, it doesn't really stand out enough, and unfortunately, if you carry in the, it's like Toy Story. I mean, a lot of people love Toy Story 4. A lot of people, it's got like 98% on Rotten Tomatoes or something, 97, something like that. But I wish it didn't exist. Because I think the first 3 Toy Story films are all like 5-star films, particularly like Toy Story 2. And I think part of the problem is not that Toy Story 4 is bad; it's that it's called Toy Story. I think that comes with an expectation and a brand. And yes, there were 2 bad RoboCop sequels, but we kind of know why that was. And you are launching it again 20 years later, which implies, right, you've got a new idea, direction, whatever, and it's carrying the RoboCop name, and it's going to struggle to measure up. It just is.
No, it's always gonna struggle to live in the shadow of its successor, I guess, aren't you? You're gonna get that with any, as you say, with any remake, I guess.
Yeah. Absolutely, but that's RoboCop done. I'm still glad we did the series, but there's only really one good film in this 4, isn't there?
yeah,
RoboCop 3, no.
Absolutely.
No, I'm kind of glad as well, because it's another
When
film
we
I can,
finally got
another
to
series
dig
I can tick
into
off my
that
list and say, oh yes, I've seen them now.
Yeah, I like
Join in that conversation.
RoboCop 3 is obviously the best because we really got to dig into that excellent Anne Lewis character.
Seriously, she needs a film all of her own.
no, she doesn't.
She
Sorry.
sits reading the paper and chewing bubblegum. The problem is we never got. It's not her fault. We never got any salient points of the character. I think what Becca's saying is not the character's fascinating. It's that she was so underserved. You feel like, to put it right, you'd have to almost give her.
Yeah, film of her own. Yeah, definitely.
It's not the way she read that paper so fascinating. I need to see more of that.
No, it's just the fact that they just created this character and thought, oh no, we'll just forget about her.
This feels like the warm-up for what's coming next, though. This feels like the warm-up for our next series, which is also Diminishing Returns.
Oh.
Well,
Resist the urge not to say it.
but it has a couple of absolute classics, and I as great as RoboCop is, there's one film in that series I think bests anything in this. So people argue about the second entry. We'll talk about it when we get there. I certainly don't think it's a bad film. I think T2 is a good film, but it's not The Terminator. But that's what's coming next. But in the interim, we've got other things to do first. But social media, you can find me at the Pasty Kid 1976 on Twitter.
You can find me at Cinematronics. You can also find the website, which is cinematronics.co.uk, which has all the podcasts on it. We are available on Spotify, Apple iPods. God, I never get the name right. Yeah, basically.
They called it podcast now, haven't
Apple,
they? You can't say
Google,
iTunes.
yeah, wherever.
Apple Google.
Yeah,
New super company.
or just Google Do You Expect Us to Talk, you'll find us.
Yeah.
Yes, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean sometimes, but mainly Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. And you can also email us if you like. expectustotalk@gmail.com, or you can follow us, as I say, on facebook.com/doexpectustotalk, or you can follow us on Twitter @expectustotalk. I'm sorry if I sound like a robot, but I'm literally just trying to get it all out there as quickly as I can.
You're just imitating the robot
Hello.
cop.
I am a robot, do as I say.
It's sure
I'm
it's
a
a very,
toaster, do as I
We
say.
turned our serotonin levels down to 5%.
surely it's the other way around, Becca. We say I'm a robot, do as I say.
I am a toaster, I do as I say.
Want some toast?
I'm a tiny toaster, howdy diddly do.
Yeah, so after moving from one series, which has a fantastic Ivor Kershner film, we move on to another Ivor Kershner film.
Yeah, and I think what this series has lacked that the next series, well, the next show will give us, is one of the funniest sex scenes in cinema history. I thought, till someone was online talking about what a funny sex scene there was in that film, and it turned out they were talking about a different one. So I thought, oh, there's two funny sex scenes in that film. So, yeah. What I think the Bond films always get wrong is they, use all these terrible things like a gun barrel and a recognisable score in the theme. And that pesky pre-title.
And
Throw those out the
and a
window.
man with actual hair.
And a man with actual hair. And so I think really what you need to do is chuck that away and have some jazz.
Have him wear some double denim instead.
Yeah. And do Barbara Carrera first. Dear. I can't wait, because the trouble is we've been slumming it with quality Bond films.
This one, I would argue, is not a real Bond film, so it's okay.
You can argue it, but we're covering it as our Bond commentary, so I'm sorry
Yeah,
for
well, let's be
embracing it.
completist.
There are Bond films I like less than this, including the other Bond film from that year. I'm sorry, I really don't like it. But what I will say is this film is fucking ruined by the lack of Eon touches. Now, it isn't the fact that it ain't Eon making it, it's what they don't have the rights to. They can't use the gun barrel, they can't use the 007 theme. Well, they weren't really using the 007 theme by that point, but they can't use the James Bond music. There's just so few of the touches we've got used to. But it is a fucking good laugh, which means, Becca,
Indeed, we should be donning our amazing 80s hair, amazing 80s shoulder pads, and pretending we are Fatima Blush. As Do You Expect Us to Talk will return with commentary on Never Say Never Again.